Welcome to another episode of Pain to Triumph. I am your host, Faye Rucker, and my lovely co host is Rovonda Doty.
Hello.
In this episode, Rovonda is sharing what it felt like after a job layoff to flip that script, the breaking points that pushed her there, and how giving yourself permission changed everything. Like if you've ever been stuck waiting on someone else's approval, this one's for you. So, Rovonda, let's get started by
Okay.
just setting the stage, right? Take me back to that first day after the layoff. What was running through your head?
Okay. Thank you so much. I think this is going to be, hopefully really refreshing for those who have been laid off. So a year ago, 2024, I got laid off. The day after, I think it was kind of surreal. I felt relieved to some degree, but of course concerned because now I need to get back and catapult back into looking for work, looking for, another position. I was working in healthcare as a manager. So definitely it was just surreal by day the next day. Just like, okay, this is really happening. This is really happening.
Now, I know you said, all the thoughts running through your mind. You were like, wow, this is surreal. This is really happening. So, I got to find work. What am I going to do now? How did it feel to keep, when you started the process, to keep putting yourself out there,
Mhm.
doing the interviews, putting the applications, and not getting the feedback, not getting chosen for the positions that you apply for?
Disheartening, in full transparency. It was disheartening because you're getting excited. You're getting the interviews, and I will say that I was getting interviews. So, to actually get the interview, you're getting excited, you believe you're a good fit, and then to get those emails and in some instances even a phone call to say, they decided to go in a different direction. It was definitely the build up to be let down. The build up to be let down. So I would describe it as that.
Okay. Which is understandable. I mean, nobody likes doing interviews, let's be real. As
For
far as
sure.
the job is concerned, it's nerve-wracking. You're nervous, you don't wanna say the wrong thing, you want to make sure you shine and put your best foot forward. So, I mean, I can only imagine how disheartening it was because 'cause I've been through it myself, I remember that,
Yeah.
and it does deflate you.
Yeah.
So, what was there a moment when rejection stopped being painful and just started to feel numb?
Yeah. I think after application 100, you just begin to go through the motion. I mean, again, I've experienced, I thought it was going to be a quick rebound. Honestly, I was hopeful and I was thinking, okay, it's stuff out here. Let me just, I do believe I interview well and I present well. So I didn't really think I would experience the challenge that I was experiencing. It began to be a very daunting task to even be motivated to continue to apply.
Could imagine, So I know after, like you said, all the applications, all the interviews, especially when you felt really good about the interview, you know how it is when you walk away from an interview and you're like, "Oh, I
I
killed
got
that."
this. Yes, yes. I felt that
Yes.
several
And
times.
several times, and you're feeling all excited, like, man, they gave you all those little subtle cues that, yes, you're the right fit, the person, I could only imagine you starting to feel numb because you're like, "I heard this before." Like, I don't wanna get excited anymore because I don't wanna keep getting let down. So, after so many times of going through that, can you tell us, like, what moment or series of moments made you stop waiting for permission?
Well, I can honestly say that it was a lot of reflection. I think anybody that goes through a layoff or, just being let go or whatever the circumstances from a job, you are reflecting. What could I have done differently? What can I, what should I keep the same? Through the reflection, I realized that I was beginning to maybe tear myself down more than I should. So at some point, I had to begin to do some activities and things that began to reinvest in who I was as a person, which was the start of the podcast. We started talking about the podcast in December of last year. And then things began to come into fruition by February. So it definitely, I began to pivot and began to delve into some self-interest, things that I was just interested in doing, and to be somewhat of a distraction, a good distraction, right? And very much an investment in myself, because it did force me to have to get up. When your world is being shaken, you have the propensity to kind of, I just want to lay in the bed. I don't know if I'm depressed, like, I don't know what I'm feeling, but the reinvestment in myself definitely helped me to get up every day. Hey,
Yeah.
get up, girl, comb your hair, brush your teeth, put some clothes on.
So, okay, so you said you had to start doing that. How did you reframe rejection in your mind from "I'm not good enough" to "This is in my lane anyway"?
Ooh, that is an excellent question. I think I really had to start seriously looking at why the door wasn't opening. I remember distinctly one day I sat on my bed and I prayed and I said, "Okay, God, it just seems like you're not opening this door. So what do I do next?" And I started this journey of just being intentional in my prayers. And I really began to pray for direction of what the next chapter would be for me professionally, right? And I will step back 1 second. When I got laid off, not even 2 weeks of being laid off, I had people, friends, or just people I was interacting with that dropped these seeds of saying, "Well, why don't you just do your own thing?" And I remember thinking, "Well, what would my own thing be? Like, am I about to bake some cookies and sell them? Like, what is my own thing?" Right? And because I couldn't answer that, that intrigued me. So that is also why I started on a journey of beginning to write things I like to do. I like riding bikes. I like reading books. I began to write a list I like to travel, and things like that. And I think it just morphed into, okay, what am I going to give birth to? Because these doors are not opening.
Okay. So, with those conversations, that's what made something snap and say, "Hey, I need to get a new perspective." Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would even say clicked. It finally
Okay.
just, because I know a lot of times when we say the word, snapped, it's a negative type of connotation to it. But I would say it clicked. It finally clicked that, okay, maybe this is where I need to be doing something that I'm building. And that was scary, to be honest with you. Those conversations with myself just really, it began to give me my own performance review. Instead of somebody else giving me a performance review, I had to give myself a performance review on the front end of launching anything, because it takes a certain type of resilience. It's
Right.
yours. There's no one else to say, "Oh, well, so and so in department A dropped the ball." No, it's all on you.
Absolutely, good or bad, it's all on you.
Exactly.
So, describe the first time you said yes to yourself. What did that look like and how did it feel?
Okay. So through that process of just, doing my performance eval, I realized I was a procrastinator. It just having that real honest talk with yourself. Just even reflecting, I was when I got something in ahead of deadline, it was exciting because normally I would get it in the day of the deadline. You know what I'm saying? Because other things just, came into play. So when I said yes to myself, I literally broke down and cried because imagery of when I was a little girl flooded in, and I just saw myself crying, or just, how when you're younger, when something feels overwhelming, the first thing you want to do is, I want mommy, I want daddy, I want some level of comfort. I want
Mhm,
something to tell me this will be okay.
mhm.
And I had this imagery where I was really telling myself, hey girl, you got to get up and it's going to be okay. I literally had to talk to the little girl in me and realize nobody was going to come to my rescue. I really had to come to my own rescue.
Amen. Amen, and I think a lot of people probably need to do that. So, what would you say, what fears tried to talk you out of stepping into your own CEO role?
Just the fear of failure. I think we all, if we can just be, really honest with ourselves, no one wants to do it and fail. More people would do it if they just knew on the other end it's just full of rainbows and success on top of success on top of extra rainbows. I mean, who wouldn't want to do it then? But when you realize it's just a lot of trial and error, a lot of fall down, get back up, a lot of I don't really know. Is this what I should, and a lot of just knowing that I can't stay stuck. So, some movement is better, than no movement at all. And I know our people who are really into fitness can attest to that. It's better to move and get up and do something than to sit down and do nothing at all.
Right, right. And just for those listening, I want to help you understand how powerful this is, because to be laid off from a job as a manager and you have a staff and all these responsibilities and you're excellent at what you do, and then to, have to deal with the letdown, the disappointments that are coming from, the interviews and the application process. That is it's super hard and disheartening when you know what you bring to the table. And so then to have to make a pivot and decide, now I'm going to bet on myself and I'm going to become the CEO of my own company and be, part of a team and a co-host on a podcast. I want to be clear with you guys. Not only did this woman decide to join me on this venture of this Pain to Triumph podcast, she also launched her own coaching business to help other people with these same struggles, to not let the doubt, the fear, the depression, the traumas of the past get in the way of knowing you too are capable of being the CEO of your own life. So I just wanted to take a pause for a minute and just acknowledge how fantastic my co-host is. Like, let's be clear. She is that girl. And for you to not only get up, but you didn't get up and crawl and walk, you got up walking and then running. Not only did you get into starting one business, but you chose to start two. One where we share together, and one that you made a pivot to do on your own as the founder and the CEO of your own coaching business, to make sure that how you felt and all the years of ministry and pouring out, that you now can put that into practice, blessing other people. So I just wanted to take a pause right
All
here
right.
and
Thank
just
you.
make sure people understood how much strength, resilience, how much it took for you to do this. So my next question is, when you're choosing yourself, how did your identity shift when you stopped chasing jobs and started building something of your own? How did that make your own identity shift?
It made a shift in the level of confidence. Confidence is something that we can see modeled, but nobody can pour it in you. You really have to search from within to have this level of confidence. So I did birth willingly resilient coaching because I just felt like I was willing. I was personally willing to be resilient. After 1,500 no's, I was willing to say, you know what, girl, you gonna say yes and yes and yes and yes, and all you gonna hear is yes. Cause you are, like you said, you're that girl. And it had me to practice more positive affirmations to myself. We, just as a woman of faith, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I believe that I am more than a conqueror, with the help of the Most High God. I believe that. And so if I believe it, I realize my actions had to begin to demonstrate it. Faith is an action word. It really is. It's not about just standing still, thinking it's just gonna knock on the door for you. It is. It's about, yeah, knocking on those doors and getting that seat at the table, not asking for permission, but just knowing who you are and just having the resiliency to walk in that and not cower down.
Amen. So, looking back at everything that happened with new eyes, right? If you could talk to the version of you sitting in those interviews, what would you?
Wow. I I probably would have told myself this is no longer my lane. And I'm gonna tell you why. Leadership wise, I really believe I had done everything I was supposed to do. I had learned a lot of the things I was supposed to learn. There was nothing else that could have yielded me, you know? And so it was almost like I was being told, okay, you've been coaching people, I mean, anybody knows who's in the management role, you're coaching your team, you're doing performance reviews, you're writing people up, you're doing, action plans if that's necessary. You're monitoring a budget. You're you're seeing what will work and what won't work. You're being innovative. And now I was being, it was almost like the pause and the length of time that was going by was saying, "Can't, but will you do it for you? You were doing it for others, other CEOs, but will you do it for you?" Whatever that looks like for someone. The question I would pose is, but will you build it for you? Will you build it for you? So that people are still getting the same benefit, the great benefit from it, but
Mhm,
you're doing it with not all of the restrictions. And
mhm.
I think that was the part that, was intriguing, exciting. It's like I get to build this and I don't have the same restrictions.
Mhm. So, what do you see now about rejection that you couldn't have understood then?
Rejection is good. I mean, I think we think rejection is a negative. We're so people seeking. We want the approval of others. We want the validation of others. But rejection really asks the question. Rejection almost turns around and asks the question, will you pick you? Will you choose you? Will you? And my answer was yes. I I like spending time with me. I think I'm funny. Think I'm cute. So it's just like I had to start being comfortable. That wasn't my comfort zone.
Mhm,
I like being in the background. So even being on the podcast, it took me out of that comfort zone of being able to be in the back. I had to be in the front, and, you know, I didn't it wasn't a level of comfort that I was used to. So now it's just like, "Okay, get used to this. Yeah, okay, that wasn't so hard." Half the battle is really just doing it so that you can prove to yourself that it's not as bad as your imagination is leading you to believe that it is.
You right. Because sometimes we can talk ourselves out of something before you even try it. You don't know if you would have been a success or not. So, I want to ask you, how has this journey reshaped the way you define success and permission?
Think ultimately success is freedom. I'm most successful when I'm free to be my creative self. And sometimes let's just be clear, corporations, organizations will restrain you from that to some degree unless you can align yourself with a place that allows you to be 100%, 1000% yourself. I think we all had jobs where we felt like it was choking the life out of us. And I really would like to believe it was because it did not leave room for us to really show up and not have to could keep explaining who we were or who we are. That becomes tireless, whether it's your gender, whether it's your race, whether it's, ethnicity, all of the above. Sometimes you just don't want to have to show up and to keep explaining who you are, you
You
know?
right?
So, and what you're, I signed on to carry out this job description, and I'm going to carry it out to the fullest of my ability. And that has to lead and lend some autonomy. We all don't talk the same. So, I didn't want to continue to be I wanted to reshape success, and I did not deny myself that, as colorful as that may have looked, as different as it may have looked. I no longer wanted to deny myself that permission to just be 100% Rovonda.
Amen. So if you had something you wanted to, if somebody is listening and they're scared or they're on the fence about starting a business, whatever that business is there one piece of advice you can give to our listeners and our audience that, really helped you or that you feel like would help them?
Just believe that you just can't wait for the yes. What if the yes never comes? I think pondering that is enough to make you begin to look within and start to really pray about the body of work that you were designed and put here to accomplish. I have a body of work behind me. Every job that I've ever, worked, that body of work is behind me. But there's point I had to come to the realization that my future was ahead of me. And what did that look like? And I wasn't about to allow anyone to dictate what my future was going to look like.
Amen. Well, listen, I'm going to say this as we end today's episode. For those listening and those watching, it's time for you to stop waiting for a seat at someone else's table and start building your own. Becoming CEO of your own, yes, it doesn't erase the fear or the doubt that'll creep up because we're human beings, but it will
Yes.
give you ownership of the outcome. So if you're listening to this and still waiting for someone else's permission, please know your yes is the only one that matters, and you already have it. So you're the only one that can give you a yes. So we hope today's episode blessed you. We hope you can walk away with some information and some encouragement to let you know if Rovonda was able to survive a layoff and then start 2 businesses, you can do it too. As always, we thank you for joining us. If you would like to contact us to ask any questions or reach out to Rovonda, please go to our website at
Yes.
paintotriumph.com. Enter your information in the contact section, and we will be happy to reach out to you and connect with you and help in any way that we can. But thank you so much for joining us today. We
Thank you.
appreciate you as always.
Yes, thank you.
Have a blessed one.